Hey guys, Coach Ballgame here, and yes, I'm wearing regular clothes. We just finished our 10th podcast, and it's going great, and I love it, and I'm having a great time, and I want to tell you all about it. In podcast 1, I learned the importance of a floss dance break.
We're in the middle of a game, and we were getting beat 15-0, so I called a timeout. I go, all right, guys, floss break. And so half of them did it. The other half are looking at me to see if I'm going to do it, so I start doing it. We came back. We had 16 unanswered points after a floss break.
Podcast 2, I learned
To always be ready. It's all about being productive for your team, whatever level you're at. You have to prepare yourself to be ready for that time when coach says, hey, you're in there.
Podcast 3 was all about making the game fun.
Coaching high schoolers, and the atmosphere of coaching our youth must be apples and oranges. At a mature age, one can compartmentalize the pressures bestowed upon them. One can even see through the semantics and understand exactly what the coach is trying to do. And by that age, you're dealing with adults who've been in love with that sport for many years. Conversely, with youth sports, you've got to be in the business of giving the bug.
Podcast 4, we learned what a ball player does on the field, but more importantly, off the field.
People ask me all the time if I have a child with Down syndrome, and I say this, and not flippantly, but I feel like I have 800 here in St. Louis, because each one of these, each one of these kids and their accomplishments and what they're, I mean, it really is this incredible sense of pride and ownership.
Podcast 5 and 6, we learned what the Olympics were like.
It was kind of like a dream. It was what you would imagine you would work your whole life for if you knew that was what you were working for. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just this buildup of, excitement and hard work.
The young lady, she raised her hand and she said, sorry, ma'am, you keep saying softball, but what exactly is softball? What is that? I grew up in Irvine, and it's like softball's thrown in your face, But here in the inner city, she's never seen it, heard of it, has no idea what it is. And so I'm like, this could be a young lady that probably could be a diamond in the rough. She could be the next All-American. She could be the next Olympian, but just didn't have that opportunity to play. And
Podcast 7, we talked to a guy who would trade horsehide for pig lips any day.
He was a pitcher for the Royals and the Cardinals from 1973 to 1982. He would regularly trade baseballs in exchange for hot dogs with fans. Before
Podcast 8, we talked about travel ball.
What in the world is prospect dugout?
If you go to a showcase in front of 15 college coaches that maybe you have the ability to play at, but you do terribly, and you don't put on a good performance, they remember that. Well, what if we created something that gave them the opportunity to get exposure when they weren't at a showcase?
Podcast 9, I learned the importance of getting to know my players.
Your job is to keep the athlete on the field, keep a player on the field. If I'm more focused on proving a point, my own point of my theory of what I think a big league hitter's doing or how you should teach a kid how to hit, what I've done is I'm using the athlete as just a poker chip. If his girlfriend broke up with him the morning before the game, how does that impact his gameplay?
Podcast 10, we visited my alma mater.
We look for a kid who's able to deal with adversity well and push past it. A young man who's able to communicate with those around him well and be a good teammate. If he's pitching and the shortstop makes an error, he keeps his head up, he points to him and he says, hey, I'm gonna get you this next one right here. And does all of those things that we may think as cliche, but it's really what stands out in the recruiting process, because if you see thousands of players every summer, that's a rarity. A 90-mile-an-hour fastball isn't a rarity anymore. But those players who carry themselves in that way, that stands out as special, as unique.
Well, there you have it, folks. If that doesn't fire you up to go listen to a podcast, then as my high school football coach used to say, your wood is wet. Because you can't burn a fire with wet wood. It's got to be dry firewood. All right.